This episode of Floyd Street's Finest is presented by Great Flood Brewing Company and by Bet Rivers Sportsbook. Let me tell you about our sponsors at Bet Rivers. If you haven't signed up yet, Bet Rivers is offering a $250 match bonus for your first deposit. But what sets them apart from everyone else is that they require just one play through to turn that bonus into cash money. With their Rush Pay instant approval, withdrawals are not only fast, they are safe, secure, and reliable. Go to betrivers.com today or download the BetRivers iOS app. You must be 21 years or older, and if you have a gambling problem, please call 1-800-GAMBLER. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Floyd Street's Finest. I am your host, your friend, Jeff Greer, and you may notice if you're watching this on video that we have, I was going to say a special guest, but he's not a guest. He's going to be here for a little while. He's booked to stay. This is
you're stuck with me.
Yeah, it's a live-in guest. It's our friend Jack Grossman. You may recognize Jack from his work with ESPN Louisville. Jack is going to join Floyd Street's Finest, working with some of the video production and the production of the podcast. And as a guy who grew up here and has been around Louisville basketball for a long time, and in his day job, his regular life, is also following it very closely, is going to provide his 2 cents as well on many of an occasion, including this podcast. So Jack, I'm super excited to have you aboard, and can't wait to start working with you, my friend.
Thanks, Jeff. I am extremely excited to be here with you and with play a very, very small role with Field 68 as a whole. But I'm happy. I'm excited. As you said, I've followed the Louisville basketball program basically all my life. 23 years. That's not a very long time, but I've definitely been around it. I've followed the program, know the program. Those who don't know, I went to Indiana University, graduated there last May, so I have some ties up there as well. And I've been working at ESPN Louisville, started as an intern back in the summer of 2017, and now producing the Take of Andy Sweeney, which is on 680 1057 at 3 to 6 p.m. daily. But yeah, I'm just super excited and happy to be here. And I promise not to talk the entire time.
No, you're allowed to talk. You can talk. But yeah, because we had talked about, for those who, because I don't know why I would put this in a previous podcast, why I would just say this, but we are, as you have seen now, you are noticing we are expanding. And if you have not caught on to that yet, go check out the Field of 12. It's our new college football podcasting network. The seeds have been planted there and are rapidly growing on the college football side, which is awesome. It's expanding there. Our college basketball network had a great first year, and we are just rolling into year number 2. And we're really excited for what's to come with that. And we want this thing to just continue to grow and get bigger and bigger across the entire podcasting network. And we are bringing on talented people who can help us make the product better. So that is how we have conspired to bring Jack aboard, and certainly excited to talk hoops with Jack, because Jack follows basketball very closely, knows a whole lot. The only thing we disagree on, I think, over the many months that we have talked about college basketball is Dean Smith and his legacy, but we'll save that for another conversation.
We will get into that at some point. Yes,
we will. And the podcast will hear a tone in my voice that they did not know I had from previous podcasts, but we will not do that tonight. But before we get into any more great discussion, there's a lot to talk about here. It's been a little while since we had our last podcast. We will have Mike Pegues on, planning for the next episode, which I believe will come out next week. Scheduling things have been a challenge, not through any fault of anyone else. It's just difficult with the summer schedules. People have been on vacation, et cetera, et cetera. So here we are doing our latest episode. Before we get into anything to actually do with Louisville and the men's basketball program, I will just remind people, in addition to the Field of 12, make sure you go subscribe to the YouTube channel of the Field of 68, as we see the legend behind you. Ken Grossman wandering by. Hey, that's okay. It's a family podcast.
Oh, it's what it take, like all 2 minutes. Oh God.
But no, subscribe to the Field of 68 YouTube channel, and of course, and make sure that you're telling people about Floyd Street's Finest. We want more and more people subscribing to it, downloading it, all those things. The reviews have been great. Go and leave a review if you enjoy it. If you don't enjoy it, please do not leave a review, and just keep telling your friends about it. It's the only way that the algorithm continues to populate for people to see that this is a Louisville men's basketball specific podcast that's out there, that's cracking along. Well, Jack, let's start with there's an elephant in the room, and we'll address that in a little bit with the Chris Mack situation. Before we do that, I just want to get your kind of just general thoughts here, because it's September now. The calendar has turned over. Preseason practices are very close to officially starting, but the team is back on campus and workouts, whatever the NCAA is allowing players to do, as this last couple of weeks of or off season, quote unquote, before the preseason, quote unquote, starts. Where do you think this program is, just purely from a basketball standpoint? We'll talk about the off court stuff in a little bit, but I'm curious for your thoughts. Nobody's allowed to go to practice in the off season. It's apparently a compliance thing. So we've only heard tidbits that have come out from people who've watched practice. But from a personnel, rotation, style of play type perspective, where do you think Louisville is right now?
It's in a transition. It is. I mean, you can say it all you want with the changes in the coaching staff, the 8 new players on the roster, losing your 2 primary ball handlers, the 2 guys that really you relied on to create their own shots and scored last year, Garley Jones and David Johnson. But there's a lot of talent there. There is. You bring in L. Ellis, you have Sam Williamson back, you have hopefully Malik Williams for a full season, injury issues aside. If he can stay healthy, that'd be a huge monumental boost. You have Jalen Withers trying to take the next step. And you have just a lot of pieces. Obviously, Noah Locke, another guy from Florida that's going to play a big role. It's transitioning, kind of changing the identity, especially offensively, a bit trying to play faster, trying to play more up tempo, trying to be able to shoot the ball better, because that was obviously the biggest thing that killed Louisville last year. It doesn't take, anyone that's ever watched basketball to know that they can shoot the ball.
It's
very
a low
well.
bar to clear.
Yeah. I mean, they weren't a good shooting team, and that killed basically everything they tried to do offensively last year, and was why they couldn't consistently be as good on that end as they needed to be. And it's about, getting back into the NCAA tournament, reestablishing who you are as a program, hoping that the changes that you make, Ross McMahon's kind of changing the offense, works out. And that's where I know it's the elephant in the room. That's kind of where not having Chris Mack for 6 games in November early on the season will hurt, but you still have all summer. You've had all summer. You have the preseason to try to install what you're trying to do. And early in the season, it's going to be Louisville trying to find their identity. They do get a lot of those. I know people hate the cupcake games, but they're going to be valuable for Louisville. Yeah, they're going to be valuable. It's Louisville's going to use them to be able to figure out who they are as a team, especially on the offensive end, what rotations they're going to use, trying to develop chemistry, and really, find out how good can this team actually be. And yeah, there's some challenging non-conference games on the schedule also, but I mean, you could say anything. Louisville can be anywhere from like a Sweet 16 team to a team that's on the bubble right now, and I don't think anyone's going to look at you and be incredibly surprised on either end of the spectrum on that. There's just a lot of unknowns going into year 4 under Chris Mack, and it's not great, but also not a terrible thing, because the change was needed based off of how last year ended.
Yeah, so I'll say there's a couple things there. One is, I think that's a really good point towards the end, is we don't have a real grasp of Louisville, and we're following them every day and paying close attention to them, which I think should explain to you. I've had a lot of people ask me, why do you think the national guys don't have Louisville in their preseason, not even top 25s, but like top 40s? Why aren't they in the next considered groups in the preseason top 25s? Not ranked, but in the next like 5 or 10 teams. People keep asking me that. And I think that's a big factor with all of this is, for all of us, we know, okay, the plan is, if you're Louisville, Sam Williamson and Jalen Withers are supposed to take the next big step in their careers. They're supposed to go from guys who had solid second years in college, and I know Withers was in his first year of playing, but solid second years in college and taking that next step. For Sam Williamson, it's the step that we all expected him to take as a former McDonald's All-American, that maybe even a little sooner than where it is, but I know recruiting guys thought he was a 3-year type guy in college and would reach his potential by year 3. This is year 3 for him. Jalen Withers will be playing his position again, his natural position. He's slimmed down a little bit. A few people will say, well, why is he slimming down? Why does he need to slim down? Well, he added a bunch of muscle so he could push around some other, or at least not get pushed around by centers in the ACC and beyond, and play that role. This is going to be a chance for him to do what he is better at, what he is best at, which is face up, take people off the dribble, create. He can be a good passer and score in the lane. He can shoot it a little bit and really change the dynamic that Louisville has. So those two guys, because they're not returning like third team all ACC type guys, I think national folks look at them and say, okay, they have a couple role player starters coming back, and that's okay. That's how the perceptions are built on teams. And when you toss in, like you said, Jack, I mean, we're talking about a team that has a bunch of newcomers, and you almost feel like Malik Williams is kind of a newcomer again, coming back after only getting to play 2.5 games last season. And you're so right. He is a pivotal piece of what they have coming back. The position, and I'm curious for your thoughts on this, the position that intrigues me the most, okay? I have said this now, I've kind of started to solidify this stance. Noah Locke, it seems like nobody's talking about him very often. To me, he's your clear and away starting 2 guard and has potential to average like 12 points a game. Like, I don't think people realize how lethal of a scorer he can be when he is on. Now, obviously he's had some games where he's been a little streaky, but I think they're going to basically say, you're our pure 2 guard and we're expecting you to be a scorer for us. Sam Williamson and Jalen Withers, you would assume they're the 3 and the 4. And again, this is a big if, but as long as, and if Malik Williams is healthy, he's your starting center. I am so intrigued by the point guard position and how Louisville handles it. And I'm also really intrigued to see how the backup small forward and power forward positions are dealt with as well. Where do you land on the point guard spot? Who, if you had to bet right now on not just, why don't we do this? If you had to bet on game 1, provided everyone is healthy, who's the starting point guard? And then game 31, provided there are no COVID cancellations and they schedule a full schedule. Who is the point guard in game 1 and game 31 for Louisville?
Assuming that Noah Locke is indeed starting at the 2, which I agree with you, I think he is, based off of everything that we've heard. You can kind of watch the tape back at Florida also from I mean, it's got to be L. Ellis, right? I mean, I feel I think so, yeah. I mean, like that's kind of who it has to be. And for me, the biggest question was, after losing Johnson and Carleek, is who you're going to have handle the ball, play that up-tempo style that McMains is supposed to be, installing over the course of the summer. And it really kind of all starts with L. Ellis, the stud top JUCO prospect you bring in. And he's going to have to be the guy. I mean, like I think Jared West, Faulkner, they can be nice pieces. Obviously, West was named a captain alongside Malik Williams, but I mean, L. Ellis was brought in to be a star, and he has to be a star. I mean, am I wrong on that? For Louisville to be as good as what people want them to be around here, because it is Louisville basketball, there are high standards, and they need to try to meet those high standards, but you need L. Ellis to be the guy that we have heard about for really the better part of a year and a half, 2 years now, being as good as advertised. And I know transfer rates aren't a 100% hit, but Louisville, especially under Chris Mack, has done a pretty good job at hitting at transfers, with Carleek being, the most recent example of it, to where you got to figure if everyone's healthy and Noah walks the 2 guard, LL's got to start somewhere, right? So it only makes sense that he's going to be the point guard. I feel like Louisville's pretty well set at the 2, 3, and 4 spots. They kind of, you have who you think's going to start, and you have plenty of depth behind them. The center position, it's a lot of it depends on, is Malik Williams going to be healthy, and then it's the point guard trying to figure them out. And for me, it just has to start with L. Ellis, and L. Ellis has to be as good as advertised for Louisville this year.
Yeah, I think that's spot on. And I'll just say one other thing. So I'm gonna, if I can, and I reserve the right to change this.
No. This is it. This is it, Jeff.
Put it down in jet black marker on a piece of paper that cannot be shredded.
Yes.
I will say that I think it's Ellis, Locke, Williamson, Withers, and Williams is the starting lineup in an ideal world. And then the backup, the second group is, this is going to be tough. West and Faulkner, I think, are the 2 backup guards, which isn't that difficult. I think that Sidney Curry is the backup center. I think, because I have doubts. I don't have doubts. I have questions about Roosevelt Wheeler and his health. If he gets to be where he's healthy and playing live basketball and going through live practices and stuff, I think he's talented enough to surpass Sidney Curry in the rotation and play. I just don't know where that is right now. And I know that he did not get a chance really through the summer to do enough where they felt like that was going to be.
I hope I'm writing these down, Jeff.
That's fine. That's totally fine. But somebody's got to do it. But that's where I see that. I think I'm going to say Curry is the backup center at season start. And then, the 3-4, I mean, Trainer is the backup 4. The 3 is such a fascinating position for Louisville at the backup spot, because now this is where it gets to that conversation of, is somebody not going to be happy because they're not playing? You've got Matt.
Do you think Dre Davis will play some minutes at the 4 again this year? Or is he going to be?
That's what I was going to say. Is
yeah.
you've got Dre Davis, you've got Matt Cross, and you've got Mike James. And you've got to figure out who is going to get those minutes. If you figure Sam Williamson plays 25 to 28 minutes a game and Jalen Withers plays the similar, do the math. That's at most 30 minutes a game that you've got to divvy up between 4 guys. And, you've got to try to keep those guys happy. That's one that I don't know. I lean toward Cross because of his shooting. But he got there late. Mike James was popular buzz guy this summer, and Dre Davis has the experience. So it's a really fascinating battle for those backup spots and 3-4 backup spots, because we could see Louisville at times play with Withers at the 5 and have 2 of those small forward type guys playing together and play smaller. And then they might be able to play the style of basketball that Ross McBain's is implementing on the offensive end. But anyway, so we've got Pegues next week. I feel like we'll be able to pick his brain a little bit more about how the front court guys are playing and what he thinks. I know the wings tend to practice with the guards, but he'll at least be able to tell us how Withers and Williams and Wheeler and Wisnitzer and Curry and Trainer are all.
Yeah, where's you Wiz fit in all this?
Yeah, we gotta get him in the conversation. No, I think.
But the second half against Georgia Tech, Jeff.
He
was a monster.
He was a monster. He deserves a lot of credit for that, and is an interesting player because I don't know if I have no inside knowledge of this. I haven't asked this either. I don't know if they would redshirt him this year because last year was he left school early, reclassified, and was kind of held in that emergency role. And that's tough on a kid. And he did his job against Georgia Tech. So kudos to him. And he's a guy who obviously they see potential in as a guy who eventually can contribute more consistently. So I don't know when that will be, but shout out to him for he looks so much stronger in the videos. I don't know if you've seen any of the clips, he just looks a little more cut. He just looks like he's growing into being a college player. So maybe down the line.
You figured it would be more of a developmental piece,
totally.
Anyways, where you have Malik Williams, Sidney Curry, Roosevelt Wheeler. You got a lot of centers right now. You'd be more of a developmental piece,
right? You've got guys who can play right away, and then guys who are going to be afforded time to develop. And this is probably a little bit too much of a shout for you. This is I can't remember. You would have been old enough maybe to remember this. Do you remember Aaron Gray at Pitt? You would have been like 7 or 8.
What years was it? Was when Louisville was in the Big East?
Yeah, so he was the gigantic center for Pitt, who was like 7 foot 250 and played in like the mid 2000s for Pitt.
I don't know. My kind of Pittsburgh basketball knowledge kind of starts with the DeJuan Blair, Levance Fields teams. That's kind of basketball team. It's kind of
college basketball. Yeah.
Yes,
fair enough. So he was one of their predecessors, and he was a big dude who needed time. I believe it was his junior year when he really kind of broke through after biding his time the first couple of years. I think of him when I think of Gabe Wisnitzer. I don't know enough about Gabe's game to say that they're comparable in terms of how they actually play, but I think it's 7 feet 250. Like, figure out a way to make it work, and we'll see if that's the path that he is on in his college career. But Jack, something that was very exciting for me that I need to mention here is that we've worked really hard on this podcast over the last year, about 8 months. And one of my most exciting moments was being able to go out and talk to people who wanted to partner with us and become and share in the wonderfulness of the Floyd Street's Finest and the crew. And I'm thrilled that Great Flood brewing company was happy to join us, because I love Great Flood. I made this joke the last time we did the podcast. I have spent so much money at Great Flood over the years. It is not even funny how much money I have spent, especially at
It's
trivia.
Easy to do.
It's easy to do. It's delicious beer. One of my very best friends, who sadly moved away a couple of years ago, but the first 5 years I lived in Louisville, he lived walking distance, like halfway down the street from Great Flood, which resulted in many consumed alcohol beverages at Great Flood and the Douglas Loop location. They do have 2 locations, and they sent us a note, Jack, and we're going to read this note for everyone. Great Flood Brewing Company is honored. You hear that? Honored. I should tell my mom about this. This is very exciting. Is honored to be among Floyd Street's finest. While football and basketball season gear up, mention this ad to get $1 discount on your drink at either Great Flood location in the Highlands or in Middletown. That's along Shelbyville Road, or for the Highlands one, it's down Bardstown Road at the Douglas Loop little area there. Stay tuned, as we have Game Watch deals to encourage us to watch all the biggest games together. We can't wait to listen along with you as Jeff brings us all of the best news, discussion, and interviews to bring us closer to the university we love. Cheers from Great Flood Brewing Company, Louisville-made, brewer-owned Go Cards. That's a very nice note from the folks at Great Flood. They're huge Louisville fans. They're going to be showing the games. If you want to go check out Great Flood for any of the game nights, they will be very happy to host you. And like they said, mention this ad and get yourself $1 off a beer. How about that, Jack? That's pretty exciting.
I like that.
That's very exciting. I can't remember. I think I've won twice in trivia there. I think that's 2 times, and a lot of not wins, a lot of really bad performances.
How do you rate their trivia 1 to 10?
Oh, it's like
one being easiest, 10 being hardest.
It was like I would say like a 7 or an 8. It's hard. The hardest trivia I have ever participated in. Well, okay, there's 2. One is it was, and this should surprise you that I'm saying this was difficult. It was Seinfeld trivia, and
yes,
and we finished second. My team finished second, and we got 1 question wrong, and we finished second. And the question was, what is Newman's apartment number? Which is shocking. I mean, you can Google it. I'm sure the answer would come up. The other difficult trivia night that I had that we walked into without realizing, young Jeff Greer, right around your age, had just broken up with his college girlfriend. It was Valentine's Day weekend, and my best friend came down from New York, and my other best friend was my roommate in DC. And the three of us went out, and we went to this bar that had trivia nights every Friday night or whatever it was. And we walked into a Valentine's like romantic movie trivia night, and we had no idea. And we finished last.
Oh,
And Jack, as a prize for finishing last,
oh boy,
we were given this goofy prize. In fact, I'm gonna get it. It's right here.
Yes.
Hang on 1 second.
You can only imagine what this is. I mean, this is great for. This is where you have to be able to watch the video, because the audio medium will not do this justice, no matter what it is. As Jeff's still searching for it. I played trivia. Jeff, I don't know if you can hear me. I played trivia a few times in my day. I won the ESPN Louisville intern trivia once and finished second another time. But I did win up in Bloomington. I did win SpongeBob trivia.
Oh, there you go.
SpongeBob SquarePants trivia,
That's
which people
exciting.
who know me, I'm sure that does not surprise anyone at all. But,
that's delightful.
Yes.
Well, I will tell you, I thought I had this, the prize that was, I thought it was there, but it's not there anymore. So just moved into this new house.
What is it?
It was like an absolutely ridiculous pink stuffed animal. With like, it was like a stuffed monkey, and it was pink, and it had like embroidered lettering all over him. And we had to carry him around DC while we were going out to all these bars on Valentine's Day weekend. It was hilarious. Well, Jack, you may have heard this. There's no good segue, so I might as well just go right into it. You may have heard this was.
May need some great flood beers as we
yes,
get
we
into
may
this.
need some great flood beers to discuss this next topic. But you may have heard that on Friday, which would have been what, the 28th? Is that right? 27th, maybe. The University of Louisville handed down a suspension to its men's basketball coach, Chris Mack. Everyone is presumably caught up on this story, and if not, I apologize if we're skipping ahead too much. But I kind of want to talk about it. I think we need to talk about the state of the men's basketball program, the suspension itself, and I want to also state unequivocally for people so that they don't get confused about where I stand on all of this stuff, because we've been on the radio a couple times talking about this over the summer. We've had some newsletters, we've had some podcasts, and I kind of have tried to distill everything and keep it to the same message. And I realize I might be repeating myself to some people, but you just never know the Venn diagram of listeners. Here's where I stand on this, and I'm very curious for your thoughts too, Jack. One is, make no mistake, Dino Gaudio is the number one person in all of this who did wrong. There's no question about it. The tape that was released, that ESPN Louisville first played, as far as I know, was bad. It was worse than I thought it would be of Dino. I mean, it sounded like a movie. It sounded like
it sounded like The Godfather.
Yes, it sounded like The Godfather, Scarface, all of these mafia movies. It was ridiculous. And something, I put this in my newsletter, but I'll repeat it here too, and maybe expand slightly on it. Something that really bothers me, even though I do it sometimes, and I'm prone to doing it sometimes, is when media folks say, I know so-and-so and they're a good guy and they wouldn't do something wrong, and this is bad behavior, but they're a good guy. It's a step out, whatever. I don't know Dino Gaudio. I don't. I've had many conversations with him. He has always been very friendly to me, and I always enjoyed talking to him. And we bonded over the fact that he was from Eastern Ohio and had connections to the Pittsburgh area and the Allegheny Valley. We obviously talked a lot about basketball over the years. And I always found him to be very cordial, very smart guy when it comes, especially to basketball. And I like talking to him. But I can't sit here and say, like, I know Dino Gaudio, because I've talked to him, probably 50 times in brief interactions and a couple longer interviews and conversations. But I don't go to dinner with him. I don't hang out with him and his family. I don't know him anywhere else. And I think we run into a danger in the media of taking those interactions to be everything about someone, when we have to know that there are people, we're all an iceberg, so to speak, right? And you see some of us above the surface, but there's always going to be at least a portion of us that is below that surface. Maybe there's few people that know what we're like deeper down, but there's very few when you get all the way to the bottom. And for me, that interaction said, sometimes this guy can be pretty crappy. And that was pure anger. It was pure anger. I get the frustration with being fired. I get the frustration of feeling like your friend is screwing you over, but I don't get the reaction. I don't. So I want to make sure that people know and I'm sure you probably agree with me, because we've all been talking about this. Dino Gaudio, first and foremost, started out as the problem and is the primary problem. I would be shocked if he ever coached again, at least at the college level. I would be shocked. He's also getting up there towards retirement age. All of that being said, I hope that I'm wrong. I hope that truly was out of character for him. And I know he said he's regretted it. I hope that never comes out again in his life, and he goes on and lives a happy rest of his life. He's got a family. I hope they all are happy people, and yada, yada, yada. But in this situation, really was poor character and a poor, it wasn't just a rare blip here for 1 second. It wasn't a sustained offensive, at least for one day. Second of all, Chris Mack. If I am the head coach of Louisville and I am taking over Louisville basketball at this juncture in the program's history, and it has been a mountain of crap prior to me arriving, I would be the first one to always mention that none of it has to do with me. I would always make sure to mention that. And of course, no one holds him responsible for any of the stuff that happened, obviously, prior to his time. But if the university said, you're taking this job over and you have to be so squeaky clean, like I said in my newsletter, the best example I can come up with is those privates at basic training cleaning the floor with their toothbrushes. I mean, you've got to be so clean that I don't even think that it would be good to have to talk to your compliance director for more than 10 minutes a week just to tell them that you're clean and show that you're clean. It had to be that way. And Mac has done they haven't gotten in trouble for anything else in terms of violations or anything like that. But this whole incident was a significant misstep. And I do believe that it was avoidable. People have gotten a little mad at me for saying, how would you have handled it differently? Yada, yada, yada. But we learn now, and I have a hard time believing that the 6-game suspension is entirely because of this one HR misstep. But I do think that by having a third party in the room, none of this would have happened. I really believe that, or none of this to the extent that it has happened would happen. And I think it was poorly dealt with. You cannot promise someone that you'll take care of them. You can't, if someone's trying to extort you, you can't say back, I'll take care of you. You just can't. It just comes off as, even if it's unintentional, even if it's just trying to get out of the conversation or move the conversation along or whatever it might be, the intentions behind it, it comes off as being willing to participate in it. and
not looking great.
And it doesn't look good. And the number one thing, as frustrated again as this might make some people, the number one thing that probably the number two thing. Number one is you can't actually break any rules. You really can't. But number two is Louisville does not want to, and is nearing the point where it really cannot afford to anymore take on any more bad PR water. It just can't. And I think the suspension comes from, as much as it has to probably do with potentially some level 2 and level 3 violations happening, or at least allegedly happening in the program, combined with this whole case and how it was handled. I also think that the COVID stuff is a factor in this and how it was handled in the program. And also that the video that was just kind of bad PR, I think, for the university, even though I know some Louisville fans really enjoyed it.
I found the video funny.
I know. So did I, but I still think that it would, standing on its own, whatever, it blows over. But when you add it to a small number of other things that are also small, maybe they start to add up to be a little bit more problematic. Does that make sense? I think that's where I'm landing on.
I don't know. I think, and I don't want to make this about the video from last December when there's much more, important things going on. But I feel like when you're looking at the grasp of like the extortion and the NCAA penalties, which really wouldn't be important at all if it wasn't for the fact that Louisville is under the microscope that they're under for things that Chris Mack had nothing to do with. I think the video is,
it's far down the list.
Yeah, it's that's just fair. I think if you're mad about the video, it just, the video is what it is. I thought it's funny. I'm all for the rivalry poking the stick type of deal. I love it. I find it fantastic, and I'm fine with Chris Mack doing that. In fact, I enjoy Chris Mack doing that. I mean, but I get it. The COVID aspects don't look great, but whatever. But for me, there's so much more to this than just the video. For me,
no question. No question.
Yeah, to me, I don't really lump the video in with everything else. I think you lump the COVID stuff in with everything else, but the video I just find funny.
That's okay. Yeah, well, that's fair. I guess I'm trying to think of it in terms of, if you're the president's office,
you're not happy.
You're frustrated about the way that some of the off-court stuff has taken away from the program you're building, and a team that again, as we said earlier, looks like it's got potential to be pretty good. You're not happy with this. But again, I think more than anything else, it's the extortion stuff and the way it was handled that prompted the biggest reaction. Now,
absolutely.
Jack, I want to bring this up with you. I'm curious for your thoughts on it. I have a lot of questions now about the relationships in the athletics department and the university. And I think that this situation can strain those if we are to believe some of the reporting that WDRB has done, that there were board of trustees who got involved in this conversation, members, the university and her office got involved in this. Obviously, Vince Tyree was involved in this. And I thought Vince's answer on the termination thing was a very good PR answer, a diplomatic answer. But by not immediately saying, no, we did not discuss that, that's ridiculous, leaves the door open for speculation. I don't know if I believe it or not, but that was truly ever on the table. But I think that there's some strained relationships right now at the university with the basketball program.
Yeah, and I feel like, obviously we don't know for sure what happened in there, but for Vince Tyree in that presser last Friday to be asked that question directly and not just immediately shoot it down, there had to be something there, right? Because if it was never discussed, then what do you gain by doing anything other than just shooting it down and saying, no, we never thought about about terminating Chris Mack over this. So for me, there had to have been something. It definitely, from what it seems like, wasn't coming from Vince Tyre's office. It seemed like, if anything, Tyre and Mack's relationship may be stronger after this. It seems like Tyre kind of had
I
Mack's
think
back.
And that should be that. It should be that way with your AD. Now, obviously, you need your AD to be honest with you too. So if you do something wrong, the AD is gonna hold you accountable for it.
And you want the president to be on the same page as everyone else as well.
Yes, that's true, and that's where this gets into. It's like, okay, so are they, is this going to blow over? Is this something that, is something else festering? I don't know the answer to that. But it certainly strikes me as something that has our antennas up. I'll put it that way.
Yeah. And I'll say this, I mean, it's a very tough spot for all three people to be in with everything that they inherited. And that's, they knew that when they signed up and accepted the jobs that they're currently in. And I know I was stunned to see Chris Mack get suspended for 6 games over this because he didn't look great in the recording, but at the end of the day, Dino Gaudio is the one extorting him. And from everything we've heard, these violations are just very, very minor, level 3, maybe level 2 at most, but still minor violations, to where I thought you could kind of excuse them a little bit. Excuse them's not the right word, but you can kind of say, okay, this happened. That's not great. But compared to everything else we've dealt with the last few years, unfortunately.
Maybe like a fine, maybe just fine him a week's wages, or I've been watching too much British soccer, like 2 weeks, fine him 2 weeks wages for
2 weeks wages. There you go. Yeah.
But no, you know what I mean? Like a month's salary, or I don't know how they would do it, but that's why the 6 games is a significant penalty for a team, like you said, that has a bunch of newcomers and is entering a critical season under Chris Mack. I like this whole conversation about the extortion stuff. If you took all of the other Louisville factors, the complicating factors, but this past season they were 18-5 and made the tournament and lost in the second round. I feel like we're having a very different discussion about season 4.
Absolutely. But at the end of the day, and this kind of goes back to, what Louisville's issues with the IRP and the FBI stuff like that, what they did wasn't nearly as bad as a lot of these other schools. But the fact they were under probation for the Tina Powell stuff could make it a lot worse punishment-wise. And that's unfortunate for the program, but it is what it is. And for Chris Mack, getting extorted, not great. The NCAA violations committed, not great. But if there weren't all the other factors going along with it, it wouldn't nearly be the problem that it is. And that's why I'm so torn on how to feel about Matt getting suspended, because on one hand, what he did was he was the victim, and a lot of people consider not really that bad, but Neely Bendabuti's in the spot of, look, I was brought here to clean this bleep up. Yep. And we can't afford to have anything go wrong at this point.
Anything.
And getting extorted is not exactly good. And not following protocol while getting extorted is not exactly good either. Right. So it's just a very tough position that to be put in, to where Neely Bendabuti had to do something. Right? She had to do something. And I don't know if 6 games is right, but with everything else going on with Louisville and trying to change that image, you had to do something. And obviously, if there weren't the COVID issues last year and the team makes the tournament, even if they're like a 6 or 7 seed, lose in the second round in a hard-fought game, then there's not nearly as much pressure put on Chris Mack going into year 4. Because I never would have thought there would really be any – obviously, it's Louisville basketball. There's expectations, but – for me, that's kind of where the biggest shift has changed throughout all of this, is I think there's a lot more pressure now to win year 4, instead of saying, look, the FBI IRP stuff has impacted recruiting, which it seems like it very much has. It hasn't let Chris Mack really be at his height, be able to coach at the best of his abilities. we got to give them more time and wait for this stuff to go through. Instead, the fan base is like, no, there's more bleep going on too. You better start winning now. And that's just not a spot where I thought that the majority of people seem to be in.
Yeah, I'm. If you had told me that we would be here 5 months ago, I'm with you. I would be surprised.
I would have laughed.
Yeah.
I would have laughed.
Yeah. I knew that people were frustrated. I knew that people were frustrated with the way the last season went. And the performance, the on-court product that was so strugglesome at times. I understood that. But I also kind of was like, yeah, but you would assume that they're going to go out and get some guys for season 4, and they've got some decent players. Yeah, they've done that. They've got good players coming back who are ready for their next steps. They've developed those guys. By all accounts, they look great. And so all of a sudden it's like, okay, so if they're about to fulfill what people wanted of them, it's been undercut by a summer-long drama that had nothing to do with that team. And I'm sure that it doesn't feel that way behind those closed doors. I'm sure it doesn't, because they're working every day. They're putting together practices and working out and doing all the stuff that's important for a program to progress. But to the outside world, to the fan base that follows you, that has been a big part of the conversation this summer, is all of the non-basketball stuff. And so many people are tired of that. And I think that's where everyone has arrived. It's just like, can you do like the bubble soccer stuff? Like, can everyone just be in a bubble for like 16 months and just like, or 6 months and just play the basketball season and just go home and study and don't be a human being? And no, I'm kidding. But just, nothing can nothing go wrong for a few months. They don't want to keep erasing the board and put days without an incident and put it back to zero.
Yeah. I just want to talk about the games. That's all. Yeah. That's all we want to do. That's all fans want to do. That's all the coaching staff and the players, I'm sure, want to focus on. And it's unfortunate that for going on 6, almost 7 years now, that we haven't been able to do that. Yes. And it's definitely not the biggest chapter in that saga, but it is the latest chapter and the one that impacts the program more than anything right now at the moment. Yeah.
Well, Jack, we've got, we've got about a month until preseason practices officially start. I don't know what the official start date is. And then games will be starting shortly thereafter. So we will have plenty to talk about very soon. We'll have a chance to get more insight into how the team actually looks. And look, if nothing else, there's still a suspension to serve, but at least you would think that the rest of this saga is pretty much in the books. Yeah. And I made this comment again in my newsletter. I have one brain, so a lot of these thoughts are going through all of my different mediums here, but it will ultimately and eventually be a couple of lines in a Wikipedia entry. But for now, it's at the forefront of everyone's mind, but it will fade. And that's the old saying, this too shall pass. Just look at Scott Satterfield. 9 months ago, we were all talking about his whole job fiasco thing, and now people are excited for the season to start, and I don't hear anyone talking about that anymore. So I'm sure they will if they start slowly and they're struggling, but for now, no one's talking about it. So time will heal all, and winning, I think, will heal the most. And then people will roll with the punches as the NCAA and IARP stuff comes out. So we'll see how it all pans out. But Jack, this has been fun. We went way longer than we thought we would, but I knew that was going to happen. But I appreciate your insights, my friend, and it's fun to have you on board. And let's rock and roll, man. We'll have some good podcast episodes coming up soon.
Looking forward to it, Jeff. Gonna be a blast.
Awesome. All right. Well, we'll see everybody later. This has been another episode of Floyd Street's Finest.